Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this. Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Every time I say it, it's going to suck even more.
May I present to you the cat?
I am Nadella.
I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing.
Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with Landon.
Hello.
And Caleb.
Hi.
And we're here to talk all things tech this week. We got a couple things up here on the docket that I don't know if we're excited to talk about, but we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, it's been a week. It's been 2 weeks, I guess, technically.
True. Well, let's get into it here. The first thing on the docket, we have an event here, the iPhone 16e we all wanted, but still have to wait for.
Yeah. Now, this wasn't really an event. It's just new hardware, and it just needs to be talked about first because, like Wes said, this is the iPhone 16e we all wanted. It's the Google Pixel 9a, and the best. I got to start with this. The best thing that Google did here. Okay, there's two best things, but the first best thing they did, they kept the price the same. It's $499. They didn't raise the price.
Amazing.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's the first thing they did that was awesome. And the next thing they did that was awesome was they did what we've been asking for since the dawn of smartphones. That being, don't make it thinner. Give us a bigger battery, please. And they did that. They didn't make it thinner. If anything, they made it a little bit thicker because there's also basically no camera bump on this phone.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it from the side, there is just a very, very slight little lip where the camera glass is. And that's it. And the battery, speaking of, like I said, bigger battery, it's a 5,100 milliamp hour battery. The biggest battery in any Pixel. That includes the Pixel 9 Pro XL. That's fantastic.
Wow.
So, like I said, this is what everyone really, really wanted from the 16e. And nothing like what we got in the 16e. So, thank you, Google. Now, let's go over some of the other specs on this phone. This has the latest Google Tensor G4. It's got 120 hertz AMOLED display. Thank you again, Google, because they've been doing that for a few years now in their inexpensive phone. It's got 8 gigs of RAM. It starts at 128 gigs of storage. It has an option for 256 gigs. It's got 23-watt wired charging, and then it does have Qi wireless charging. Unfortunately, it is not Qi 2 because it's Android. It's against the rules.
Yep. It's actually illegal.
Yeah, seriously. It's launching with Android 15 because Android 16 is technically not out yet. Will be shortly. And they are also promising 7 years of updates. The front camera is a 13 megapixel camera. On the back, it's got 2 cameras. It's got a 48 megapixel main sensor and then a 13 megapixel ultra wide sensor. And then it comes in 4 different colors. Obsidian, which also known as black/gray, porcelain, which is also known as white, iris, which is like a very, depending on the angle you're looking at it, like a purpley blue color, which is very faint. It's not like, ooh, that's purple, or, no, it's not that. It's very light. Or peony, which is also known as pink. I actually do like all the colors on this phone. That pink one is actually really cool looking.
It's kind of a darker pink, yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, starting price on this is $499. Fan freaking tastic. Thank you, Google, for giving us this phone. again, this is not obviously not quite up to par with the flagships, but it's not meant to be. It's the A series phone. It's always been a little bit lower tiered than the flagships. And it actually makes some sense right now because last year when they announced the 8A, the 8 had dropped down in price to around $550. So for $50 more, you could get a noticeably better flagship phone. This year, the Pixel 9, I think, is only down to $650. So you're spending a significant amount more money to get that phone. There are some benefits there, but I don't think the benefits are going to be necessarily worth the price, especially if you don't want to spend $650 on a phone. For $500, I think this is an absolutely excellent phone.
Yeah.
I mean, the Pixel A series has been very popular and very well received by anybody that's bought it in the past. So, I mean, that's basically all I can say about the phone because, I mean, we don't get review units. Why would we? We're not that cool. But as Wes did mention also, we still have to wait for it because when it was announced, it was supposed to go up for pre-order, and it did for maybe 5 minutes or so, maybe. And then Google's like, nope, shut it down, we're done. And apparently there's some sort of quality issue is what Google is saying. We don't know what the quality issue is, whether it's software or hardware. I would imagine it's got to be on the hardware side of things. But again, we don't fully know, and they haven't given us a new release date. The rumors are April, sometime in April. But again, we don't know that for sure. Like if you go to Google's website to look at this phone, instead of a pre-order button or anything like that, it's notify me, which also interesting. I mean, I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's like you could have just put it up for pre-order, then people can, order or at least put some money down to get the phone, and then just say it's not going to come out till next month or whatever. But I mean, I guess where they haven't given us a set date yet, okay, that kind of makes sense. But I mean, Sony does this all the time. They announce a phone and then it's not available for 6 months. So I guess maybe that's why nobody has a Sony phone.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, it makes sense if it's a hardware issue. They might genuinely not know when it's going to be ready. Like they might be in the stage where they're kind of like, it's kind of a serious thing. Certainly we can't sell the phones with this. And they have to probably pull back all of the phones that they've already sent out, like to retailers and stuff like that, and send replacements, which means they got to manufacture those replacements. So like any manufacturing headroom that they had, they've lost, I think. And if that's the case, then I mean, yeah, it does kind of make sense that they would not give any kind of date, not open it up for pre-orders, because it's all like, this could be next month, this could be in 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, like who knows. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but like I said, it should be a really good phone once it is available. The one thing I failed to mention, so I did mention that it basically has no camera bump. It also is missing the iconic camera bar that Google has been known for over the years. It does still have the pill-shaped cameras, like where the camera sensors actually are, which is very similar to what the 8A was. Like, it still has, it's basically the same shape of camera sensors that are there, but the metal bar that was stretched across the back of the phone is also gone. So that, I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
Because again, there's no bump at all, but that bump kind of made it so there wasn't a bump in a sense because it didn't rock at all.
I think what happened here is the manufacturer they were using in China to make the little bump camera bar thing got pirated by Apple. I think Apple poached them so that they could make the camera bar on the back of the iPhone Air that's supposed to be coming out this year.
Yep.
According to the renders, it just has a camera bar on it, like a Pixel.
Yeah.
It looks like a Pixel. Apple, you're making a Pixel. How much you want to bet it's going to cost more?
Oh, yeah, probably.
So that's why it doesn't have the bar on it. I mean, they couldn't manufacture enough.
I mean, I understand that. That would make some sense. But I mean, the rumors so far is that the Pixel 10 will also still have the camera bar. But I mean, maybe they have to save all the camera bars that they still have,
right,
for the 10,
for the Pixel 10. Yeah, yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you were interested in looking at this phone, it is like you can go look at it. There are reviews out. Well, not even full reviews yet either. They had a weird embargo that they only were reviewing the hardware. You couldn't review the software, which is odd. Usually a red flag. It's like, okay, if places don't let you put out a review of everything at once, usually not a good sign. But at the same time, we also are very familiar with the Pixel hardware software experience. It's going to be more or less the same across all the devices. It's just a matter of how the hardware in the lower end phone utilizes that software. So we kind of have an idea of what it's going to be. So I don't think that's as much of a red flag as it could be. Hopefully, we'll obviously find out at a future date. But if you were in the market for a new phone and have been looking at one of these, like in the lower tier type of phone, not the iPhone 16e, don't get that one. Get the Pixel 9a.
No,
it's going to be more affordable and a much better experience overall.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Looks like we have another thing here. What's old is new again in more ways than one.
Yes. So, listener, we've mentioned how, was it a month ago probably, that Google basically put the Pebble OS as an open source software, and the original founder of Pebble was like, oh, I'm going to take that and come out with a new Pebble watch. Well, he couldn't technically come out with a Pebble watch because Google owns the name Pebble. So he came out with this is the more ways than one, where what's old is new again, because the name is not the name of a processor. Don't get confused when I say this, but it's the Core 2 Duo. This is not an Intel processor from 15 years ago. This is a watch from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's the name of the watch, is the Core 2 Duo. It's basically what the Pebble 2 was, almost spec for spec. It's kind of interesting. And from what I understand, actually, is the manufacturer that made the original Pebble 2 still had a bunch of the old hardware lying around. And the guy was like, hey, can we buy some of that off you and make a few more as well? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? And that's what they did. And that's the
awesome.
The Core 2 Duo is the watch. So Core, I guess, is the company, the brand behind this new quote unquote Pebble watch. And then, it's the Core 2, and then they threw Duo in just for kicks and giggles. I don't know, because Intel can't use it anymore. I don't know. But I don't fully understand it, but I love it. It's great. Like, it, as much as Core 2 Duo was an interesting name back in the day, for the fact that they used it for this, I actually absolutely love it.
No, it's so hilarious. Like, I saw this in a headline, and I was like, Pebble Core 2. Like, I had such a mental double take. I'm just like, what am I reading here?
I mean, maybe,
did not parse.
Maybe the chip that's inside is a Core 2 Duo.
That would be so dumb.
Or at least it's probably more powerful than a Core 2 Duo, let's be honest. It
probably is more powerful than the Core 2 Duo. No, as the owner of several Core 2 Duos, those are about the size of a smartwatch. Just the chip itself. No.
Yeah.
It was funny. It was just, I saw that name and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. So the Core 2 Duo, listener, I'll just go through some of the specs here. It's got a 1.2-inch black and white e-paper display. So, I mean, like I said, if you're familiar, if you remember back in the day, like I said, about 10 years ago, when the original Pebble watch came out, and this is the Pebble 2 is basically what this is. It's that watch. It doesn't have a touchscreen because the Pebble didn't have a touchscreen. It's just controlled with buttons on the side. It comes in either black or white. Starting price is $149, so it's pretty inexpensive for a smartwatch. It is a very basic smartwatch. It doesn't do a whole lot of stuff. It'll give you notifications. You can't do anything, like you can't respond to anything via the smartwatch because it's not that kind of watch. The biggest thing here, though, is it does have 30 days of battery, which is better than what the original Pebble was. The original Pebble, I think, was 7 days. And the Pebble 2 was very similar to that. So you're getting 30 days worth of battery. And that's basically just has to do with the fact that battery technology has come a long way in the last 10 years. So that's really nice. It does have step and sleep tracking. So that's pretty cool. And another upgrade from the Pebble 2 is this one has a microphone built in, which the other one did too, but this one also has a speaker. I'm not entirely sure what that's going to be used for, but it does have one. So,
audible notification sounds?
Maybe.
That's the only thing that would make sense.
I know. I wouldn't want to take a phone call. I mean, I don't like taking a phone call on my watch because, yes, it has a speaker. Don't use that, please. Anybody out in public, don't do that. Don't be that person. It's like the type of person that's holding their phone out on speakerphone in the store. Don't be that person either.
Don't be that person.
Also, if you're filming videos with the back camera on your iPad, stop it. Just,
don't be that
person. This is a PSA.
person.
This is a PSA moment. Stop doing these things. Nobody likes it.
Side tangent there. I am actually glad I haven't seen anybody doing that in at least 5 years or more. It
has been a while.
Now have a smartphone and know that camera is better than their iPad camera. So that's nice.
And it's really inconvenient to try and shoot a video on a book. Like, there's a reason cameras aren't shaped like that. I don't know.
Yeah, weird. The next watch that they announced, because they did announce 2, is the Core Time 2. Now, this is basically what the Pebble Time 2 was going to be. They had announced the Pebble Time 2 back in the day as well, but it never actually launched in time before it was bought by, who bought Pebble?
Fitbit.
Fitbit,
right?
That's right. And then Fitbit just stopped doing anything with Pebble because I don't know. But the Core Time 2 is very similar to the Core 2 Duo, but this has a color e-paper display, and it is also a touchscreen, so a little bit better. It also has the same estimated 30 days of battery life as what they're claiming, so even though it's a more or less like the screen should be taking up more battery, they must have a bigger battery in this one because, again, 30 days of battery life. All the same features across the board there. The price is a little more expensive. It's $225 for this one, but that's because the display is going to cost a little more money. It looks very similar to the Core 2 Duo, but if you want to have the touchscreen and the color display, this is going to be the route you're going to go for. They don't have a date on this one yet. They said sometime this year. Rumors are December is going to be the launch date for the Core Time 2.
That is technically this year.
Yes, it is. I don't think they're going to wait till like the 31st of December, hopefully, but that technically would still be this year. But yeah, I'm trying to find the launch for the Core 2 Duo. If I remember correctly, I want to say April is when that's going to be available, but I am not seeing it. So if you happen to be the type of person that either hasn't had a smartwatch in the past, or you did have one of these and you really liked it and you just kind of you don't necessarily need all the fancy stuff that, the modern smartwatches give you, this is a great option. I love both of these watches. They both look really good. Functionality-wise, I think they are perfectly fine for most people because, let's be honest, most people really only get a smartwatch for notifications and step tracking.
Yep.
That's really it. If you need something more than that, you know you need something more than that, and you look for a specific watch for what you need. So, there you go. The new Core Time 2 and the Core 2 Duo that is not an Intel processor.
I kind of want to get one just so that I can say, oh, that's the Core 2 Duo.
Just to say it, yeah.
I just want it
Yeah.
just for that.
Well, let's go ahead and move on. Speaking of Intel and products, I guess we could talk about their new CEO.
Yeah. So, listener, you may recall that we mentioned that Pat Gelsinger had parted ways with Intel, to put it kindly.
Yes,
to put it,
parted
what I suspect more accurately, was driven off by the board. So,
Yeah.
Intel's been somewhat rudderless in the interim, and let's be honest, Intel's just been struggling in general. But they have announced their new CEO. His name is Lip Bhutan. He has been or was on the board for Intel before a couple of years ago when Pat Gelsinger and him clashed and he left the board. He did not like Pat. He has like a lot of ideas about things he's going to do differently. And in essence, they boil down to, it's the inefficiencies inherent in the way that Intel's been doing business are the reason that we're struggling so much. And it's like, okay, I guess that's very, very broad, but all right. Biggest issue, to be clear, don't have an issue with the dude. Nothing about, he's been around the tech sphere for a while. He served on the boards of HP and SoftBank. He has done some CEO stuff before at smaller companies that were fairly successful. So things might be fine, but he is a vocal opponent of Pat Gelsinger's plans at Intel. And one of the things that I can say for certain was a pet project of Pat, that's a lot of P's, was the Intel Arc GPUs. So if we take at face value the fact that Lip Bhutan doesn't like Pat Gelsinger, there's reasonable expectation that he may kill their GPU division, and they'll go back to only making integrated GPUs for their CPUs. And that would really suck, especially since they have entry-level GPUs that are price competitive and performance competitive with anything, like the very best of AMD and Nvidia, like at like the $200 to $300 price range. If you're buying a brand new GPU, it makes absolutely no gosh darn sense to get one from AMD or Nvidia. You can get a B580 instead. Do that, right? So it's nice to see some actual competition from a third GPU manufacturer, but that might not be around for too much longer. So that's that. Intel has a new CPU or CEO. It'd be nice if they had some new CPUs.
Yeah.
Has a new CEO. It's too early to say whether or not anything is really going to happen. He's been on the job for 5 days as of recording. So no idea what's going to come in the future. But I am slightly worried about Intel's GPU division. So there you go.
Okay. Guess time will tell. All right, let's move over to another one of Caleb's favorite companies, Nvidia's 5-week sales numbers versus last gen.
We are literally not allowed to go an episode without talking about Nvidia in this day and age.
It's his new favorite topic.
I'm just so done. So this past week, Nvidia did a couple of things. They hosted the GTC, which is the GPU technology conference or something like that, which just so happened to overlap with the game developers conference. So interesting timing on that. You will note that this is, in terms of the structure of our podcast, I'm talking about this around the time, talking about Intel. We're going to be talking about text messaging and phones here in a little bit. This is not a gaming thing. So, and I'm not talking about GDC. We're talking about Nvidia's conference instead. So you may take from that some things, but let me explicitly state there were no new GPUs for gamers announced by Nvidia at GTC. They didn't talk at all about GPUs. In fact, the entire thing was geared towards investors and data centers buying gigantic piles of AI accelerators and data center GPUs. They also didn't have a presence at the Game Developers Conference, did not say anything about GPUs over there. The closest thing during GTC that Nvidia got to even mentioning the existence of gamers was they had a food truck outside where you could go to buy Nvidia merch, and they were selling 5080s out of that truck. That is as close as gaming GPUs got to being a part of Nvidia's graphics technology conference. So that's a fun little detail. Just before GTC kicked off, Nvidia released a statement, a graph essentially, that was all like the messaging was essentially, listen, we don't know why everybody is complaining about the lack of availability of 50 series GPUs. The simple fact of the matter is we, over the past, the first, if you take the first 5 weeks of the 50 series and compare it to the first 5 weeks of the 40 series, we have sold more than double the number of GPUs in that same time period. Or was it more than that? Was it like 3 times as many? It was a lot. They're like, so why is everybody complaining? Completely failing to mention that the first 5 weeks of the 50 series has comprised the launch of the 5090, the 5080, the 5070 Ti, and the 5070. That's 4 GPUs, 2 of which at least are solidly in what should be the mid-range of graphics cards, and therefore should be fairly mass market and sell in very large numbers. The first 5 weeks of the 40 series was the 4090. That's it. They had one card, and it was the super expensive Halo product that a very small number of people were ever going to buy, right? Most gamers were never going to buy the 4090. Most gamers were never going to buy the 5090. That's comparable. If you want to compare the sales numbers of the 5090 over the past 5 weeks to the sales numbers of the 4090 over the past 5 weeks, that would be a fair comparison. But they didn't. They said the whole thing. And no, Nvidia, I'm sorry. You should have been able to outsell the 4090 by 5 times with just the 5070 in 1 week. Okay? Because that's what the pricing and availability of these GPUs should say. But no, all of them taken together, and you're like barely doubling the 4090 by itself over the first 5 weeks. That's not something to brag about, Nvidia. It's just not. There was also a couple of other little things that happened over the past week. During GTC, Nvidia said that over the course of, I think, just the first quarter of the year, they had sold, or was it just the past month? It might have just been the past month. They had sold like 8 million, something like 8.6 million data center GPUs. And some industry insiders pulled some numbers, checked with some resources, and came up with a number of gaming desktop GPUs for that same time period to be approximately about 200,000, like 1 to 200,000 in the same time period that they sold 8.6 million GPUs to data centers. So if you are wondering why Nvidia doesn't seem to care about gamers anymore, that's why. Don't buy their cards. They don't care. Their driver support's going to get worse and worse over time, I'm sure. Their prices are never coming down, and they're just going to continue to try and sell you last year's technology for this year's prices based on the idea that, frame generation, it's, AI hallucinated frames are as good as actual rendered frames, and definitely don't pay attention to the ghosting or latency issues or anything like that. This 5070 is like basically a 4090 if you squint real hard and are in fact also blind.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyways,
that sucks.
It's good times. So that's what's been happening with Nvidia over the past couple of weeks. And they did, like I said, no announcements of anything about the 5060 or 5050 that we had thought maybe we would see timelines for this week. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I will not be talking about Nvidia next week.
I'm not going to hold my breath.
Wouldn't that be nice? Oh, don't. I think you'll asphyxiate and die.
All right, let's move on. RCS will soon be encrypted for everyone.
Yes, good news here is, so if you are an Android user and you use Google Messages, RCS has already been encrypted back, for messages sent between those users. It's been between iPhone and Android that RCS has not been encrypted, and that's partially Apple's fault. I only say partially because technically the RCS standard was not encrypted, and that is what Apple has been using instead of using what, like, Google added their own end-to-end encryption for RCS in Google Messages. Apple could have used theirs. Google offered it to them. They didn't do that. Apple also could have, built their own in, but they didn't do that. But the new RCS Universal Profile 3.0 is what it's called, is going to have end-to-end encryption as a standard in RCS across the board. So that will bring end-to-end encryption to RCS chats from iPhone to Android, from iPhone. Well, you're not using RCS from iPhone to iPhone because duh. But
yeah,
anywhere else you're using RCS, it will be end-to-end encrypted, and that is really nice. This will be rolling out to iPhones in a software update sometime in the future. I would imagine this probably won't happen until sometime with iOS 19. But we don't know that for sure, but I don't expect this to come out in iOS 18. I think it'll be a thing in iOS 19. I don't know if it will be with 19 at launch. It could be, considering it's technically now available. I hope Apple will do that. But I also would not be surprised if it's like a 19.1 or some like a point update inside of iOS 19. But the good news is that end-to-end encryption is coming for everyone that is using RCS. If you are not using RCS, why? Seriously, why? It's so much better than SMS ever was and ever could be. So please, if you are not using it, just go into your settings and turn it on, because it's much, much better. Much better experience for everyone. Please.
All right, let's move on. All right, we're OnePlus. You tried this already.
Now this was going to be bad news, but it's not entirely bad news. So OnePlus, a few years ago, they came out with I don't even remember which phone it was that they tried this on. They got rid of the alert slider, and everyone hated it because that is one of the reasons you buy a OnePlus phone, is for the alert slider. Like, people that buy OnePlus phones, they love the alert slider. Ask if you happen to know somebody that has a OnePlus phone, just ask them their thoughts on the alert slider, because that they're going to have thoughts on it. But
Yeah.
OnePlus has announced once again that they will be killing the alert slider, but they are going to be replacing it with more or less an action button that like the iPhone has, and other phones have also implemented this button. So I don't necessarily hate that they're getting rid of the slider, like the physical sliding button, because by default, this button will control your volume settings, ringer settings, like the alert slider does, but you will also be able to customize it to something else if you want to do that. So that's fine, I guess. I mean, the alert slider, the downside this is it had 3 different options, whereas like on the iPhone, it only had 2. So it made kind of sense that the default was still that functionality, because you click it once, it turns your ringer off. You click it once again, turns it back on. This one, I don't know exactly how it's going to work. If you have to click it once to do something else, click it twice, I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. It's not worth it. I don't. I've been living with a phone with an action button for a little while, and to be fair, I never really used the mute switch on my last phone very frequently. It's just in silent all the time.
Yeah.
But I had occasion the other day to unmute my phone, and yes, the action button is just set to silence, because that's literally the only thing I could possibly think that I would want it to be. Apple. Anyways, so I unmuted it, and it was just, gosh darn, heck of a lot less satisfying and less intuitive. It's just not as good. It's not as good. Physical switches are good. Apple, they're good. It's a good thing. You should put the physical switch back on the front. Whatever.
I mean, I'm in the same boat as you, where my phone is on silent pretty much all the time. But
Yeah.
the thing I use the mute switch for on my phone is more or less a fidget type toy. Like I just put my phone, my hand in my pocket, and I'll flip that back and forth every once in a while with my thumb, So that's kind of nice. I don't hate that.
Yep. Definitely can't do that with the action button.
No.
It's not fidget worthy at all.
Yeah. I mean, you could press it. It's just not nearly as, like you said, it's not nearly as satisfying.
No. Nope.
But at the same time, I also, as someone that does leave their phone on silent all the time, I don't hate the ability to customize what this does. I don't know what I would put it as if I had the option, because I don't have the option, so I haven't put any thought into it, because it doesn't do me any good to put any thought into it, because I don't have the option on my phone. If I did, I would put some thought into it, maybe put it to something that is slightly more useful. I might even switch, if I got a new iPhone, it would probably be the latest with the camera button as well. So because initially I thought, well, maybe I'll switch it to a camera button and then put the lock screen button as something else rather than camera. I don't know. But again, I haven't put that much thought into it because I don't have the option.
Yeah. I don't know. It kind of triggers me to a lesser extent, but in sort of the same vein as all of the car manufacturers replacing buttons and knobs with friggin' touch screens.
Oh, I know.
Just like ergonomically so much worse. It's just a worse way to use a car.
Yeah.
In every way. I don't. What do I as the user gain from this?
Less
Nothing.
Safe driving experience.
Exactly. What do they gain from it? It's cheaper, heck of a lot cheaper. They don't have to think about the design before they ship the car out, and they can change it in a software update later. And they can lock features away behind paywalls, charge subscriptions for stuff like your cruise control. Car companies love it. As a consumer, it's the worst. Do not, listener, don't buy a car that has only touchscreens in it. You should demand better from your cars. And if that means you go and buy an old car and then have it fixed up, do that instead. That's the message we should be sending to the car manufacturers.
I will say on that side of things, though, there are some car manufacturers that kind of were going that way and have started to come back because everyone
true.
complained. So I do like
Because
that.
everyone, yeah.
But there are some of those companies that only have touchscreen, like Tesla, and I think Rivian is one that is mostly touchscreen. So it's like some of these car companies that started that way may not ever come to physical buttons, but at least the traditional car manufacturers are kind of coming back to that because, like you said, people are complaining. They don't like the non-physical buttons. Physical buttons are fantastic. Apple,
They are.
OnePlus.
Well, hold on. I'm trying to remember there's a what is it called? The Ineos Grenadier. Okay, listener, if you haven't heard about this car, lovely tangent for you here. We're talking about cars for a minute. The Ineos Grenadier. So Ineos is a mining company. They don't make cars. That's not what they do at all. They don't manufacture cars. They own and operate mines and I guess manufacture some mining equipment. Okay. But the CEO of Ineos, apparently longtime, I guess Land Rover fan or Range Rover fan, but was just extremely disappointed with all the modern iterations of either the Range Rover or the Land Rover and decided that he was sick and tired of it. The most recent one released with like exclusively big touchscreens, and that was it. And he's like, nope, that's it. And so he hired a crew of people to design an off-roading SUV. And then he built it and is selling it. And it's called the Ineos Grenadier. And if you go and look at like pictures of the interior of this thing, yes, there is a touchscreen in there that you use for controlling your media and your music and stuff like that. There's also a panel up on the ceiling with like big old chunky metal switches on it and stuff like that for changing your drive modes and that kind of thing. And then all the volume controls, the climate controls and everything, it's knobs and there's like big old levers for your 4-wheel drive and stuff like that. It actually looks amazing.
This is like a G-Wagon you could actually take on a safari.
Yes. Yep. It's evidently also extremely well built, super capable off-road. Like it's a really good SUV. It ships standard with a snorkel.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's designed to actually do the off-roading stuff that it should be designed to do. And yeah. And honestly, it's expensive, but you can get it for less than $100,000, which, that's actually pretty price competitive with something like a G-Wagon.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. And geez Louise, the cabin of this thing, makes me so like simultaneously jealous and also impressed. Just the simple fact of the matter is this thing kind of makes you feel like you're in a cockpit flying a helicopter or something like that. And that is the dopest thing. So anyways, there you go, listener. There's my tangent for the episode.
Quite the tangent. All right. Well, speaking of tangents, I feel might be coming on this next one. AMD launches the 9950 X3D.
This one's actually going to be fairly straightforward. So when AMD launched the X3D version of their 7000 series processors, we had the 7800 X3D that immediately rose to the forefront as the gaming powerhouse. And the 7950 X3D and the 7900 X3D, so the 12-core and the 16-core versions, were not as great, right? Like they were still good, like strong CPUs because of 12 and 16 physical cores, so up to 32 threads, like that's a lot. You don't want to mess with that. But in terms of gaming, they actually suffered and fell behind the 7800 X3D in performance because of an issue that AMD was having with the CCDs on the processor. So, long story short, AMD puts multiple pieces of silicon on those higher end processors, as opposed to just one single silicon die that has 6 or 8 cores. In order to make a 12-core or a 16-core, they put 2 6-core silicon dies or to 8-core silicon dies and tie them together. When they put the 3D V cache on these chips, they only put it on one of them, right? So if you are using a 7950 X3D, only one of those dies has 3D V cache on it. The other one does not. So in order to get the big gaming performance you get from the X3D processors, the games have to be running exclusively on the cores that are connected directly to the 3D V cache. Otherwise, there's a whole bunch of latency introduced because the other core is trying to talk to them. And AMD tried to put out some driver level software that was going to kind of make that work better, that would essentially shut off during gaming the non-X3D piece of silicon. It didn't really work with the 7000 series. But they learned. It's better now. They've mostly resolved that issue with the 9950 X3D and the 9900 X3D. So both of those chips launched. Everybody did testing. There's a few edge cases where the 9800 X3D is still a little bit better for gaming, but not many. For the most part, pretty much on par, right? If you want to play games, the 9950 X3D and 9900 X3D are going to do it about as well as the 9800 X3D. And if you want to do anything else, they're going to do it better because they have more cores. So there you go. Now, they're more expensive, obviously. So if the only thing you're going to be doing is playing games and you just want the best pure gaming CPU, save a couple $100, get the 9800 X3D, totally fine. But if you have a very heavy use case for more well-rounded computing, go ahead, get the 9950 X3D. It kicks butt and is just, generally speaking, the best all-around CPU on the market these days. So, yeah.
There you go.
Good job, AMD. Just making Intel feel worse about life.
Yeah, a lot.
They're on their third CEO of like the past 5 years and can't sell CPUs to save their lives. Yikes.
All right. Next thing here. Plex is the new Netflix, but not in the way you might think, and also better.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, right?
Yeah. Very, very nice, Wes. So, Plex is the new Netflix in not like they're going to start, having their own shows or things like that. No, they're not doing that. They're now going to be charging or requiring you to pay money if you happen to watch things remotely, which, that's basically everything that you do with Plex. So unless you have your own server and you're on the same network as said server, you are going to have to start paying for Plex Pass, which is understandable. I mean, Plex has been more or less a free service forever. You could pay for Plex Pass in the past and been fine, but you didn't have to do it for the majority of how most people use Plex. And so, like, the fact that they're now doing this, I don't hate, because, again, they've been providing a very valuable service for more or less for free for probably 80% of their users forever. So I can't blame them for this. I don't hate that I don't love that they're doing this, but I don't hate the way they're doing it, because it's also still a very user-friendly way to try to make people to pay. Because, like I said, if you do have your own server and you're still watching on the same network as the server, you're fine. You don't have to pay. It's if you want to watch remotely, then you're going to have to pay, and it's only $2 per month or $20 per year. So, honestly, not bad at all. And that's also, if you are a person, which is also the majority of probably their users, you are the person that doesn't have the server yourself, but you have access to a friend's server, then if the server you are accessing, if that server owner for some reason isn't paying themselves, then you're going to have to pay the $2 or $20 a year. But if the server owner is paying for it, then you don't have to pay. So that's also really user friendly.
Nice.
Or you could pay for a let's cover this really quick. So if you get regular Plex Pass right now, the price is going to be going up from $5 a month to $7 a month. If you're or going from $40 a year to $70 a year, which again, not overly expensive by any means. Or you could get a lifetime pass that was $120, will be going up to $250. But the really nice thing here is these changes don't take effect until April 29th. So if you happen to be someone that does need remote access to either your server or someone else's server, and you don't know if the person that you're going to be accessing it from is paying for it, you could just pay the $120 right now. You have a month to do this. Pay $120, and you won't have to pay again, at least for the foreseeable future. This is what they say, a lifetime pass. And based on the way Plex has, functioned forever, I don't think they're going to say, no, you're going to have to pay down the road, because they don't seem to be that type of company. They are very user friendly, and they look out for their customers in very good ways.
So far.
Yeah. Unless they get bought by somebody, which I'm sure they've probably been offered a buyout in the past, and they've just said, nope, we're fine. So again, if you happen to be a Plex user and are looking at this, I would recommend the $120 lifetime pass before it goes up to $250, because that's a really good deal. I mean, $250 isn't horrible. It's just obviously more than $120. So if you can do it before April 29th, I would recommend that by far as the best option. But also, $2 a month or $20 a year is also not a bad option. So, like I said, they are kind of cracking down, quote unquote, on people not password sharing, but kind of password sharing, is what Netflix did, but in a much, much, much better way, way more user friendly, and much more affordable as well. So thank you, Plex, for being who you are and not being just total dicks about everything.
Well, and if, like me, listener, you're, a free user of Plex and you've never really used the whole streaming outside of your local network thing, I just want to clarify that as far as I understand it, you can still, from inside of your local network, download stuff onto like your mobile devices and whatnot via the app, and then watch it on the go elsewhere. Right? Like you can still do your local content download and stuff and take that with you. You're just not going to be able to stream remotely, which, like, if you hadn't already explicitly set up your network to work with the remote streaming thing, you weren't doing that anyways. So like that functionality is still there. So for me, I'm still not going to pay for it. I'll be able to continue to use it exactly the same way as I was before. So I think Plex did a good job with this one. And the fact that they went a decade without actually raising their prices or reducing the functionality for anybody, and then it's a fairly minor increase now. Yeah. Pretty good. I
mean, honestly, over the years, they've made Plex, they've added features without charging. Like, they do have now, you can stream live TV over Plex in certain ways. Like, obviously it's going to be ad supported, but that's fine. It's live TV. There's going to be ads anyways. And they've also got different shows that through different channels of their own that you can watch. And again, ad supported, but it's fine because it's free. So I love Plex. I love the functionality of it. And I don't hate what they're doing here at all. It's very reasonable. It's still very user friendly. and the price is really not horrible. Even the upgraded prices that they're going to be marking up to, not bad at all for what you get.
Yep.
Agreed. I don't use Plex, but I've heard really good things about it, so that's awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Got a little bit of gaming news here. Just kind of a quick thing I wanted to explain about. So at GDC, the Microsoft did a themed blog, and they shared an Xbox UI mock-up with Steam integration. So, okay, let's get into this before, because man, this is throwing people through a loop apparently. So yes, a while ago, probably a year ago, Xbox, the head of Xbox there, or at Microsoft Gaming, Phil Spencer, came out and said that he would like to see other stores on the Xbox. So he came out and actually said Epic, but he didn't say Steam, but obviously it was heavily implied.
Yep.
So, okay. So at this here, let's fast forward here. They came out with like I said, a mock-up for a dev blog that showed what the UI would look like for other stores. Now, and it did say under category when it showed a picture, and it said owned games, Steam games, and and actually had another button for owned. So obviously this was a quick mock-up of, hey, this is what it could look like. But a lot of people were saying, oh, look at this, it says Steam, that means it's in, and it just exploded. So
and they quickly pulled the picture down.
Yes,
After
they
it
pulled
got
that picture down very fast. But let's look at this. Let's be real. So Microsoft did come out and say, hey, we are working on a for their PC app, for the Xbox app. They are working on integrated games. So if there's a game on your computer that's through Steam, you're going to be able to see that in the Xbox app that just says, hey, this is a Steam downloaded game. So you can see it. Steam, I believe, does that. If you've got it downloaded somewhere else, you can have it show up in your Steam launcher. But you can add it. So it's a thing that it's already there, but that's what they were working on. And I think, obviously, with this picture, bring speculation. Yes, they want to add that ability, but they said the thing that they're working on is really just that at the moment, which makes sense because if they're wanting that handheld coming out this year, they're wanting to show, hey, this is coming from your Steam stop library. This is that makes sense.
Yeah.
With the hand.
Well,
so
the thing that kind of confused the whole matter is that the picture, the mock-up, was just on a TV, and standing next to the TV was an Xbox and I think a laptop, and there was some stuff. And so it's like, what were they showing on the TV? Was this the Xbox app on the laptop? Was this the interface concept for the Xbox itself? Not really possible to say. Yeah. It was 100% just a mock-up, was not actually a picture of anything. Mm-hmm. Not, so this was just them playing around with ideas. That being said, they have also gone on record as saying that, they're working on a more handheld gaming friendly version of Windows 11 for, handhelds.
Yes.
And comments have been made in the past about how they want to bring the experience on Windows closer to the experience on the Xbox. And insiders have suggested that they're currently working on essentially rebuilding the Xbox's interface and underpinnings from the ground up to essentially just be Windows 11. And so all of that taken together kind of suggests that there is totally a world in which Microsoft is just treating the Xbox as a Windows PC. Yep. And at that point, why wouldn't you be able to play your Steam games on it?
Yep.
So that's probably the future of the Xbox, whether or not it's next year or next console generation, much harder to say. Probably not next year, if I were to hazard a guess. But and the thing that gets me is I have heard some people that are all like, Microsoft can't do that. They can't do that to the Xbox, the loyal Xbox customers. And I'm sitting over here as a PC gamer going, why wouldn't you want your gaming experience to be objectively better? I don't like, why wouldn't you want to be able to have a giant library of Steam games that don't require you to pay a subscription in order to do multiplayer? Why wouldn't you want that? I don't get it.
Let's not dive into that mental ideology. That's not healthy. But you're right. I mean, someone that plays a lot of Xbox, I wouldn't mind seeing. Yeah, I have a couple Steam games that are on there. Sure, I wouldn't mind seeing them, but mostly I would probably hook up a keyboard and mouse to play those Steam games, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Listen, Heroes of Might and Magic 3, I'm not going to play with a controller.
You can already hook up
exactly.
a mouse and keyboard to your Xbox to play games. Well, and that being said, if you believe the rumors that they've made about Valve releasing a Steam controller again that is, designed to essentially make it so that you can play your mouse and keyboard games, even if they don't support mouse and keyboard on a controller, the way that, the controllers are kind of set up on the Steam Deck, that's also a possibility. And maybe that's in the future as well. There's a whole lot of this stuff that's happening. And every time somebody complains about it, I'm all like, I feel like you're complaining about the wrong thing. Why aren't we over here forming picket lines in front of Nvidia's corporate offices? And instead we're whining about the possibility of Microsoft adding Steam to the Xbox.
Yeah.
One of these things would be objectively good for everybody. And the other one is Nvidia. I don't...
I think, like I said, I don't think we should die. We're skimming the surface here, this mental thing. Let's not.
It's difficult to understand. I'll just put it that way.
Listener, and remember, our podcast is called Calling All Platforms. We like all platforms, the integration, that's what this is. So we might all be on different platforms, but we like the integration of all of this. So.
Yeah,
but I figured I'd share something because I saw this, and apparently it's making either there's no news, so this is why it's getting so much attention. That's what I'm assuming, but I figured I would just mention it if you were wondering, or it's just a big nothing burger.
Yeah.
So, there's so much. Yeah, we can keep going on with it, but we'll just end it there. But. Well, it looks like that brings us to the end of the podcast then. Unless, Landon, do you have one more thing for us?
No.
Not this time. Okay. Well, listener, we do appreciate you listening to us. If you want to get a hold of us or want to mention anything, you can get a hold of us on our social medias as well as callingallplatforms.com. You can check out our YouTube channel there. Check out those videos again, write some comments, do what you want to do. Maybe get after Caleb for not putting
rewatch your favorites.
Watch it. Just add it there, ring the bell, whatever they say, all that stuff. Well, all right, listener, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.